Sonic's transition to 3D wasn't bad.
So let's start things slow. In case you already haven't seen my SEGA Superstars retrospect video, you can already tell that I'm a big fan of SEGA, particularly a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. I may like Persona, Phantasy Star, and Billy Hatcher, but no other SEGA franchise can make me happier than the Blue Blur. As a very little kid, I mostly grew up playing with the Genesis games minus Sonic's CD, besides a little demo on the PlayStation 3. Afterwards, Sonic, besides Super Mario Bros., was my go-to video game series whenever I feel like playing games. I would also look at fan works of the franchise during the golden age of YouTube between 2006 to 2012, as well as other websites like Newgrounds. What can I say, my fixation towards Sonic never died down. But during that time, I was always curious and wanted to play the 3D games, including 06, since I eventually got bored of playing the same 2D Genesis titles, especially since I wasn't the best at playing them thoroughly. So one day, around summer of 2013, I accidentally used my dad's money to buy Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2 respectively because I mistook the gamer score points for actual currency. Yeah, go figure. So once I tried playing these two games, believe it or not, I gave up on them. Yeah, the full versions are completely different from the demo versions because even though I was into Sonic, I didn't really look much at the gameplay footage of the 3D games besides the 2D Genesis ones. For Sonic Adventure, the hub world and the orderly unlockable characters of the game got me very confused right off the bat. So around 2015, a whole 2 years later, after seeing footage of both games, I decided to give it a full playthrough on Sonic Adventure, and after finishing the game before 2016 got around, it immediately became not only my all-time favorite 3D Sonic game, but my favorite Sonic game entirely. Learning about the game's development and success made me think that this very game was destined to be my favorite of all time. Though, to the eyes of the internet, people claimed that Sonic had a rough transition to 3D, all thanks to this game, and I, even in my childhood mind, thought that was considered bullcrap. I mean, it's the goddamn internet, what else can I say? You see, after Sega's competitor Nintendo released Super Mario 64 and Nintendo 64, and PlayStation marketing Crash Bandicoot that laid the groundwork for 3D platformers, other video game companies, including Sega, were hungry to try some of those 3D polygons. But given the disappointing sales performance of the Sega Saturn, Sonic took a backseat during the time, and Sega had made and released experimental takes on the series at the time that tried to appear in 3D. Whereas other video game franchises got into the 3D world and paid off on their first try, for better or for worse. Sega and Sonic team was still trying to figure out how 3D truly works after the release of Nights into Dreams on the Sega Saturn. And with the company creating a new console known as the Sega Dreamcast, they felt like it would be the perfect time to mark Sonic's full-fledged 3D debut on the ultimate gaming console. As Shigeru Miyamoto and his team at Nintendo worked on Super Mario 64 for 2 years, being a game for the Super FX chip on the Super Nintendo and then shifted development for the 64, Yuji Naka and Naoto Oshima had a total whopping 10 months of figuring Sonic Adventure out. And this was decades prior to Sega and Sonic Team releasing rushed games of the series from time to time. And in December 1998, Sonic Adventure was released in Japan, and a year later as a launch title for the Sega Dreamcast arrival in North America. The game quickly became a killer app of the console and is the sole reason to own the Dreamcast. So what made Sonic Adventure a 3D masterpiece in my opinion, despite all the minor issues this game has faced? Let's talk about the story. Dr. Robotnik, now known as Dr. Eggman for this point forward, has allied with an ancient evil known as Chaos, whose origins remains a mystery. After hearing about his plan to power up Chaos to destroy Station Square and create Robotnik Land, Sonic must collect all Chaos Emeralds before he does, as he embarks on his biggest adventure yet, hence the title. The story, in terms of Sonic's playthrough, is very simple and straightforward, but despite the game being called Sonic Adventure, it has given some more story and characteristics of the characters we once knew in the Genesis games. As during development, Sega wanted to add more storytelling since the game was originally conceived as an RPG at one point. For Sonic, his impatient and snarky attitude lives up to his quick nature just like he was previously, and he never takes no for an answer, in contrast to Mario's simplistic yet happy-go-lucky personality. For Tails, he became an established character to the point where he has to rely on himself in some circumstances besides letting Sonic be his hero, which was long before Luigi was an established character in Luigi's Mansion, as he was basically just, well, Green Mario. For Knuckles, he was always seeking some answers, as he always been curious as to why someone entrusted him in being Guardian of the Master Emerald. Amy went from being the Minnie Mouse version of Sonic to also having an established character, where she's seen as a damsel in distress to being a girl power type character upon being the Flicky's protector. Let's take a break at the story and head over to the gameplay. For these characters' gameplay, Sonic obviously relies on top speed platforming with a side of exploration to get from point A to point B in certain stages. Given the fact that you can span Sonic spin dash to top speeds, you can do some crazy speedrun skills to the point where maneuvering around levels as Sonic are no problem. Tails acts the same way as Sonic, though he has to race his opponents to get to the goal on time before they do. Knuckles relies on treasure hunting. As each and every stage goes on, he has to find 3 pieces of the shattered Master Emerald that Eggman destroyed and force chaos out of. His gameplay is alright, it is miles better than he was in Adventure 2. For Amy, she is incredibly slower than Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles combined, as she walks and runs at a snail's pace. Though her lack of speed was reasonable, given that her stages mostly rely on exploration rather than just high-speed action. Speaking of stages, all of them are well designed, even after 27 years. Emerald Coast, Windy Valley, Ice Cap, and Speed Highway are iconic locations to come back to. Skydeck, Final Egg, and Twinkle Park are some stages I like coming back to as well. I still don't quite understand why people don't appreciate Red Mountain and Casinopolis so much. I think the designs of those levels just scream underrated. I mean, have you seen the speedrun of Red Mountain? And even though I'm calling this game a masterpiece, I'm just gonna say it. Screw Lost World for being the hardest stage ever made. I still can't believe that as a kid, I almost wasted my excitement playing that filth. You may be thinking, Blackhead, are you forgetting 2 other characters? Yeah, I know. Big and Gamma are the 5th and 6th playable characters in the game. They're meant to exist due to adding more gameplay features, especially since children fan mail Sega on giving Sonic a freaking gun. Since that would later become a semi-signature trait for Shadow in his own video game Shadow the Hedgehog in 2005. Big is super slow, and he can cast his fishing rod to catch fish or Froggy. His story is also very simple, as he just wanted to get his frog back. Big's mere existence in gameplay was very controversial due to making the game very slow and underwhelming. And even as a kid, I also absolutely hate Big. Over time, he did become much easier to play at times. Gamma, on the other hand, is sort of quick and can use his arm cannon to shoot projectiles, though he has a time limit, making the experience more challenging. His story is meant to be a perspective with a Flicky inside of a Bagnik and goes against Eggman's orders. You ever wonder what it's like to be an animal trapped inside a killing machine? Well, this is Gamma. Many people criticize these two due to having no impact on the story surrounding Chaos whatsoever, though over time, reception of both Big and Gamma has gotten lighter. For me, the story does calm down from the Chaos stuff at times with both Big and Gamma, maybe even Amy at that. Outside of the main adventure, you can raise Chow, which are like Tamagotchis. If you happen to own the Sega Dreamcast, you can download and actually play a Game Gear-like minigame called Chow Adventure. Sadly, I don't own a Dreamcast and I don't use the Chow that much, but as a kid, I did enjoy playing with these guys. And one thing for sure, that damn music. OSTs in future Sonic games may have exceeded this game's OST, but my gosh, even 27 years after this game came out, you cannot stop listening to these amazingly composed tracks. All thanks to the effort of Jun Sinoue, who's mostly the composer of the Crush 40 heavy rock band. I mean, listen to these soundtracks. So to end this all off, how does this game end? Well, it ends like the very best kind of adventure. Besides all the cheesy and sometimes questionable voice lines, they do hold up really well depending on how you feel about it. Continuing on with the story. So with Eggman disrupted by Sonic once again, Chaos is still not letting up and steals the very last Chaos Emeralds for Tails' plane. Using all 7 of them, he deliberately destroys Station Square and takes Eggman down after he fails to have his own taste of revenge. Sonic and the crew minus Gamma are all met up with this mysterious Echidna named Tikal, who watches over the Chow and the Master Emerald, so she's one of Knuckles' ancestors of the Echidna tribe. Chaos just so happens to be a mutated Chow and is also protected of the Chow and the Master Emerald. Until one day, the Echidna tribe grew worried of Chaos' presence and sought to murder him, which causes Chaos to get extremely mad and uses the power of the Chaos Emeralds to wipe out all of the Echidna tribe. All of the characters came to realize that Chaos is still upset after all these years, and the Chaos Emeralds appeared to be drained. Tails lifted up everyone's hopes due to the fact that Chaos was harnessing the negative energy of the Emeralds, meaning that Sonic should be able to harness the positive energy. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the greatest 3D debut of Super Sonic.
I'm not gonna think this way, nor will I count on others. Close my eyes and feel it burn. Now I see what I've gotta do. Open your heart, it's gonna be alright.
So once everything calms down, Chaos deforms into his regular self and sees Peaceful Child singing and playing around. Tikal takes him into the child and has finally passed on to the afterlife. For Sonic, he goes back to deal with Eggman once more. Wow, what a masterpiece of a game. You made me think that me calling Sonic Adventure a 3D masterpiece is a little too far. I get that the camera can be challenging or some gameplay choices were questionably upsetting, but while I understand that, masterpieces doesn't always mean that it's gotta be 100% perfect. Ocarina of Time is a masterpiece as well, but due to its data controls, empty open world, and some cryptic puzzles, it can leave a sour taste to some gamers, regardless of the game's perfected popularity. Crash Bandicoot is like a 3D version of Donkey Kong, but it makes the experience more frustrating than exciting. Heck, even Super Mario 64, another masterpiece, has some flaws as well, with its wonky movement controls, some unfair level designs, and challenging platforming. Despite all of that, these games, alongside Sonic Adventure, were successful enough to pave the way for 3D games to be incredibly mainstream. I guess Bubsy 3D kinda goes there, but no one gives a shit about Bubsy. And I'm fully aware that Sonic Adventure didn't age well according to its numerous ports. After Sega's failure to maintain a successful business with the Dreamcast, they shifted focus on third-party game development. So, in 2003, they released Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, an enhanced version of the original game with updated graphics and a new unlockable character, Metal Sonic, which is basically the Metal Sonic that was ripped from Adventure 2 Battle and serves as a skin for the regular Sonic with minor animation changes. The many other ports of Sonic Adventure are, kinda complicated. The GameCube version is a port of the original Dreamcast game. Coming after the GameCube was the PC version, which itself is a worse version of the GameCube port. The piss-poor PC port managed to migrate over to the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, the version that I played growing up. But about the Xbox version that I played growing up, instead of appearing as the DX version of the GameCube and PC, they had to take a step back and release it as the original Dreamcast version, leaving the DX upgrade as DLC. I can't tell if Sega did this because of the upcoming Dreamcast collection at the time, but it's just left as a coincidence. And finally, the last occurring port of Sonic Adventure was ported back to the PC again on the Steam platform. And say, if you own the Steam version, you're playing Sonic Adventure from the Xbox, PlayStation, that was from the PC, that was from the GameCube, that was from the original Dreamcast release. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. Because of these ports, the downgraded gameplay, texture changes, minor glitches, and the removal of the original lighting engine from the Dreamcast version end up falling victim to appear very bad to play. To which I think many people and game journalists who grew up with the re-release ports over the original Dreamcast release got the cliche idea as to why Sonic's 3D transition was rough. I mean, look at Mario 64, that game also didn't age well, especially with its current version on the Nintendo 64 online app on the Nintendo Switch for having lag input. But both Mario 64 and Sonic Adventure still live on as one of the most legendary 3D platformers as far as the original versions of their respective console goes. And that's why I think Sonic Adventure is a 3D masterpiece, despite all the criticism and minor issues this game has faced over the years, and why Sonic's first foray into the 3D world wasn't rough, therefore putting that stupid-ass excuse to rest. But until then, inmates, I'm very glad you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share it to your friends. This is Black Hat signing out, and have a tremendous Thursday. And FYI, I'm still called Top Hat.